Are the Cleveland Browns making the single biggest mistake in franchise history? That's the question burning across the NFL right now, and it all revolves around one young quarterback who hasn't even been given his shot yet, Shedeur Sanders. See, every so often in football, a story comes along that's bigger than the game itself. It's about more than touchdowns, more than depth charts, more than X's and O's. It's about hype colliding with reality, about legends being made or buried, and about the power plays happening behind closed doors that shape the future of the sport. And right now, all of that energy is swirling around Cleveland, where the coaching staff and front office seem determined to keep their most electrifying asset hidden on the sidelines. But here's the problem: the rest of the world doesn't want to wait. Fans are demanding answers, players are speaking out, and even a three-time Super Bowl champion like Travis Kelce couldn't hold his tongue. When one of the greatest tight ends of all time goes on record and practically begs to see Shedeur Sanders unleashed, you know this is bigger than your typical roster decision. This is about money, power, and control colliding with raw, undeniable talent. Think about it. Shedeur hasn't thrown a single meaningful NFL pass, and yet he's already moved over $250 million in jersey sales. That's not hype, that's a cultural moment. That's hundreds of thousands of fans saying, "We believe in this kid. We want to see him play." And when an entire fan base plus elite players from around the league are echoing that same message, how long can the Browns really ignore it? Now, on the surface, you might think this is just about depth chart politics. Veteran QBs like Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel holding onto their spots while the rookie waits his turn. That's normal in the NFL, right? But if you look closer, this situation is anything but normal. There are whispers coming out of Cleveland that the decision to keep Sanders buried isn't about readiness at all. Some reports suggest it's fear. Fear of the spotlight, fear of the pressure, fear of what happens when the rookie comes in and immediately outshines the veterans. Others claim the Browns don't want to hand the keys of the franchise to Deion Sanders' son too quickly, worried about what that media circus would do to the team. But here's what doesn't add up. You've got a Ferrari sitting in the garage, the fans are begging you to take it for a spin, and instead, you keep rolling out a beat-up old Honda. That's not just questionable coaching, that's self-sabotage. So, the question becomes, what are the Browns really afraid of? Why are they burying a player who already has the backing of NFL legends, the love of the fans, and the numbers to prove he's a phenomenon before he's even stepped on the field? Stay tuned. Because this isn't just a football story anymore. This is a battle between safe and spectacular, between control and chaos, between a franchise trying to play it cautious and a fan base demanding greatness. And trust me, when you hear what's really going on behind the scenes, you'll never look at Cleveland the same way again. When Travis Kelce speaks, the NFL listens. We're not talking about some random analyst or a retired player desperate to stay relevant. This is a three-time Super Bowl champion, a future Hall of Famer, and one of the most respected voices in the game today. And recently, Kelce dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the league. He went public with his frustration over the Browns keeping Shedeur Sanders off the field. Now think about that for a second. Travis Kelce has no ties to Cleveland's front office. He doesn't share a locker room with their players. He's not fighting for reps or playing time. He's one of the most accomplished players in football, a man who has nothing to prove and everything to lose if he starts speaking out of turn. And yet, in front of cameras, he couldn't hold back. He practically demanded that the Browns give the people what they want. His exact words? "I want to watch Shedeur Sanders. The world wants to see him." That wasn't just casual commentary. You could hear the passion in his voice, the frustration boiling over as he spoke. He even slipped into almost cursing on camera, not something Kelce does lightly. This wasn't a soundbite, this was raw emotion. And here's why it matters. Travis Kelce doesn't normally get involved in other teams' quarterback controversies. He doesn't need to. He's catching passes from Patrick Mahomes in the biggest games on the planet. His focus is winning more Super Bowls. For him to take time out of his own spotlight to shine it on Shedeur Sanders, that tells you something deeper is happening here. Kelce sees what fans see. He sees a young quarterback with the kind of natural confidence and magnetic presence that can't be taught. He sees a player who brings excitement, energy, and ratings every time his name comes up. And more importantly, he sees the absurdity of the Browns burying that type of talent behind players who aren't moving the needle. What makes this even more explosive is that Kelce didn't just talk about Shedeur's talent, he talked about what Sanders means to fans. He's going to put eyes on the screen, Kelce said. He's going to bring people to the game. That's not just football talk. That's business talk. That's recognition that Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a cultural phenomenon, someone who can change the trajectory of an entire franchise. And let's not forget, Kelce has Cleveland roots. He knows that fan base. He hears the chatter, the demands, the buzz surrounding Sanders in that city. So when he spoke, it wasn't from the outside looking in, it was from someone who understands exactly what the fans are feeling. So here's the reality. When a player of Travis Kelce's stature openly calls out your organization, you can't brush it off. This isn't some talking head fishing for clicks. This is one of the NFL's biggest stars, frustrated enough to break the silence. And if Kelce is willing to say what millions of fans are already thinking, just imagine how many other players are whispering the same thing behind closed doors. And trust me, Kelce won't be the last voice you hear. When Travis Kelce spoke up, it might have sounded like an isolated comment at first, one superstar voicing his frustration. But it didn't stop there. In fact, his words were just the spark that lit a fire across the league. Because almost immediately, other players began chiming in, and what's happening now is bigger than one tight end making headlines. It's turning into a movement. Take Cam Ward, for example, a first-round quarterback pick with all the hype in the world behind him. He's a young talent, on the rise, trying to carve out his own spot in the NFL. You'd think he'd focus only on himself, right? Wrong. Even he took time to speak out about Shedeur Sanders. That's rare. Most rookies stay quiet, especially about other rookies, but Ward couldn't ignore what was obvious. Sanders deserves his shot. And that's what makes this so unusual. Normally, in the NFL, players keep their heads down. They don't publicly vouch for guys on other rosters, especially when it involves controversial situations. But Shedeur is different. He's breaking that unspoken code because his talent and his presence demand attention. And it's not just rookies either. Around the league, whispers are turning into shouts. Veterans who have gone up against the very best are watching Sanders and saying, "This kid has it." That might sound simple, but in NFL language, those three words carry weight. "He has it" means the confidence, the skill, the poise, and the charisma that separate the greats from the forgettable. Even opponents' players who would normally relish seeing a rival team's self-destruct are rooting for him. Think about how unusual that is. The NFL is cutthroat. Most players would never want to give a rival an advantage. And yet, when they look at Sanders, they're not hoping he fails. They're waiting for the Browns to wake up and give him the chance to succeed. That tells you everything. Why does it matter? Because player opinion isn't just noise. In the NFL, respect among peers is priceless. Coaches and front offices may hide behind stats and schemes, but players know talent when they see it. They go up against greatness every single Sunday, and when that many voices start lining up behind Sanders, it's not just hype anymore, it's validation. So now, the Browns aren't just ignoring their fan base, they're ignoring the very fraternity of players who live this game, and every time another player speaks out, the pressure builds. It's no longer a question of if Shedeur Sanders gets his chance, it's a question of when. And here's the kicker. This isn't happening in a vacuum. These voices are starting to form a chorus, and that chorus is growing louder every single week. From rookies to veterans, from locker rooms across the league, the message is clear: let the kid play. But if the players see it, if the fans see it, then why doesn't Cleveland? The answer to that is buried deep inside Kevin Stefanski's latest press conference. And trust me, it's more revealing than anything he planned to say. So here's where things go from frustrating to downright bizarre. With fans demanding answers and players across the league speaking out, you'd expect Cleveland's head coach, Kevin Stefanski, to finally address the elephant in the room. Instead, what came out of his press conference was nothing short of tone-deaf. When asked directly about Bailey Zappe's return, the very move that pushed Shedeur Sanders further down the depth chart, Stefanski's explanation was painfully weak. He called Zappe a good kid who works hard and fits well. That was it. No mention of arm talent. No mention of leadership. No mention of any skill that would actually justify giving him reps over one of the most exciting young quarterbacks in recent memory. Just generic cliches that sounded like they were pulled from a coach-speak handbook. And here's where it gets even more telling. Reporters pushed him again, hoping for a real answer. Maybe he'd finally address the obvious question, why Shedeur isn't being given the same opportunity. But instead of offering any clarity, Stefanski doubled down. Once again, Zappe was described as someone we trust and who works hard. It was the kind of non-answer that makes you wonder if he even believed what he was saying. But the real story wasn't just in his words, it was in his body language. The moment Shedeur's name surfaced, Stefanski's tone shifted. He hesitated. He deflected. It was as if just acknowledging Sanders' presence made him uncomfortable. To anyone paying attention, it looked less like confidence in a decision and more like a man trying to hide the truth. And that truth? It's becoming harder and harder to deny. Stefanski isn't benching Sanders because of performance. He's benching him because of fear. Fear of the media frenzy. Fear of the expectations. Fear of what happens when Shedeur steps on the field and immediately makes Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel look obsolete. Because, let's be real, if Bailey Zappi were truly the answer, fans wouldn't be chanting for Sanders. Travis Kelce wouldn't be cursing on camera. Cam Ward wouldn't be speaking out. The Browns wouldn't have $250 million in jersey sales tied to a player they refuse to let play. None of this would be happening. Instead, the press conference became a masterclass in dodging reality. Generic compliments for Zappi, awkward pauses around Sanders. Coach speak about trust and good kids while ignoring the one quarterback that fans and players alike can't stop talking about. But here's the problem for Stefanski. Every time he refuses to give a straight answer, the pressure doesn't go away. It builds. It multiplies. Fans walk away more frustrated. Players grow louder in their support. And the media starts digging even deeper into what's really happening behind the scenes. And when you look closer, you realize this press conference wasn't just tone-deaf. It was a signal, a sign that Cleveland isn't making decisions based on football alone. Something else is driving this something bigger, and something that's about to collide with the reality of Sanders' skyrocketing popularity. And if you want proof, you don't need to look any further than the jaw-dropping $250 million jersey sales that have every front office executive in the league sweating bullets. If there was ever proof that Shedeur Sanders isn't just another rookie, it came in the form of a number so staggering it made NFL executives across the country sit up straight: $250 million in jersey sales. Let's put that into perspective. Most rookies don't sell more than a few million worth of jerseys in their first year, and that's if they're highly drafted and immediately starting. For Sanders, to generate $250 million before even taking a meaningful NFL snap is unheard of. It's more than just hype. It's a signal that he's not just an athlete, he's a movement. This isn't just about fashion or fan loyalty. This is about cultural impact. Every jersey sold represents a fan casting a vote of confidence. It's a way of saying, we believe in this kid. We want him to succeed. We're ready to rally behind him. And when that belief is worth $250 million, you're no longer talking about simple merchandise. You're talking about one of the most powerful market forces in all of sports. And here's where it gets tricky for Cleveland. That number doesn't just mean profit, it means expectations. Front offices across the NFL look at jersey sales as a direct reflection of a player's drawing power. More jerseys sold means higher ticket sales. More ticket sales means stronger TV ratings, and stronger ratings mean millions more in ad revenue. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a one-man economy. So why is he sitting on the bench? Why is he buried behind veterans who, let's be honest, don't move the needle even a fraction of what he does? That's the million-dollar question, or in this case, the $250 million one. Because from a business standpoint, it makes no sense. Imagine owning a Ferrari dealership and refusing to put your fastest car on display. Imagine keeping a blockbuster movie locked in a vault while showing reruns of last year's flops. That's what Cleveland is doing by sidelining Sanders. They're sitting on a gold mine, pretending it doesn't exist. And yet, instead of capitalizing on this once-in-a-generation phenomenon, the Browns seem paralyzed. Some reports suggest they're terrified of the circus that would come with unleashing Sanders, the media frenzy, the constant coverage of Deion Sanders, the microscope on every single throw. But here's the thing, that circus is already here. The spotlight is already burning on Cleveland, whether they like it or not. The only question is whether they'll embrace it or keep trying to hide from it. Because every day Sanders sits on the sideline, that $250 million becomes a reminder that fans are waiting, a reminder that players across the league are watching, a reminder that the Browns are holding back the very thing that could transform their franchise overnight. And the longer they delay, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't about readiness or talent, it's about fear. Fear of what happens when Sanders takes the field and proves what everyone already suspects, that he's better than the guys ahead of him. And that fear is exactly what's driving Cleveland's decision-making. Which brings us to the heart of the problem. The Browns aren't just keeping Sanders benched, they're actively running from greatness. At this point, the question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders can play. The question is why the Browns are so reluctant to let him. And the answer, when you peel back the layers, comes down to one word: fear. Fear is driving every decision in Cleveland's front office. It's not fear of failure, it's fear of success. Think about it. If Sanders gets on the field and lights it up, the entire narrative around this team changes instantly. The veterans Flacco, Gabriel, even Zappe become afterthoughts overnight. The coaching staff loses control of the conversation, and ownership is suddenly thrust into the center of the NFL's biggest media storm. Because Shedeur isn't just any rookie. He comes with a spotlight that few players in league history have ever carried. The cameras follow him. The headlines revolve around him. And whether fair or not, every throw, every touchdown, every interception will be dissected not just by local beat writers, but by national media, celebrity commentators, and even people outside the sports world. He's not a hidden gem. He's a cultural icon waiting to happen. And that terrifies the Browns. You can see it in the way Stefanski avoids his name in press conferences. You can hear it in the vague, recycled praise of hardworking kids while ignoring the quarterback who just sold $250 million worth of jerseys. The organization knows that the moment Sanders takes the field, they lose the ability to control the narrative. And control, in the NFL, is everything. Then there's the fear of exposure. What happens if Sanders really is the superstar everyone thinks he is? That would mean the coaching staff wasted valuable time in games by holding him back. It would mean executives mismanaged the most marketable rookie in decades. It would mean ownership put ego above performance. In short, it would expose Cleveland's leadership as incompetent, and that's a spotlight they're desperate to avoid. But there's another side to this fear, and it's more personal. Sanders isn't just representing himself. He's carrying the name of Deion Sanders, a man who has already proven he can take over the college football world. If Shedeur explodes in the NFL, it validates everything his father has been saying about his talent, his preparation, and his destiny. And for traditionalists in the league, that's a nightmare. It shifts the power dynamic. It proves that a player can bring his own spotlight, his own fan base, his own empire, and not depend entirely on the franchise machine. And that's exactly what Cleveland is afraid of. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback. He's independence. He's disruption. He's proof that the old NFL hierarchy where teams controlled every aspect of a player's narrative is starting to crumble. But here's the thing about fear. It doesn't last forever. Pressure builds. Fans grow louder. Players demand change. And sooner or later, the Browns are going to realize that fear isn't protecting them, it's destroying them. Because the longer Shedeur Sanders is kept off the field, the more explosive the fallout will be when he finally steps onto it. Every story like this eventually reaches a breaking point. The silence, the tension, the calculated dodges from the coaching staff, they can only last so long before the dam bursts. And in Cleveland, that explosion is not just coming, it's inevitable. You can already feel the cracks forming. Fans are restless. Every press conference is filled with questions about Shedeur Sanders. Every time a veteran quarterback struggles on the field, the roar from the stands gets louder, put in Shedeur. The front office may think they're keeping things under control, but the truth is, the situation is spiraling. Because here's the reality, you can't keep a player this big, this magnetic, locked away forever. Not when he's selling more jerseys than half the league combined. Not when his social media highlights get more views than actual NFL game recaps. And not when the players in the locker room themselves are starting to wonder if they're lining up behind the wrong guy. That's the dangerous part, the internal pressure. The NFL is built on competition. Players want to win, and they know talent when they see it. When you have a rookie carving up practices, when you see him dropping dimes that the starters can't match, it's only a matter of time before the whispers start. And whispers in an NFL locker room spread fast. Once the team starts questioning the coaching staff, you've lost control. That's when frustration boils over. That's when fingers start pointing. And that's when one bad loss, one embarrassing Sunday afternoon, can turn into open rebellion. The veterans on the roster might keep their heads down in front of the cameras, but behind closed doors, those conversations are happening. Why isn't Shedeur playing? What are we even doing here? And when that frustration spills into the public, it becomes chaos. The fans turn on the coach. The media swarms like sharks. And ownership, desperate to protect their investment, has no choice but to step in. That's the explosion everyone sees coming, the point where Cleveland can no longer justify keeping Sanders on the bench without tearing their own franchise apart. Because let's be honest, every delay just raises the stakes higher. If Shedeur had been given a shot early, maybe the hype dies down a little. Maybe the pressure isn't so unbearable. But now, the anticipation has been building for months, and the moment he finally takes the field, the spotlight will be blinding. Every snap will feel like history. Every throw will feel like a referendum on the franchise's future. And that's the irony. By trying to avoid the storm, the Browns have only made it stronger. By hiding Sanders, they've created a monster of expectation that no coach, no front office, and no PR spin can contain. The explosion is coming, and when it hits, it won't just reshape the Browns, it could reshape the NFL itself. Every great story in the NFL comes down to timing. For Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, that timing is running out. The clock isn't just ticking on the season, it's ticking on the entire strategy the franchise has used to keep him hidden in the shadows. And the truth is, that clock is louder than ever. Right now, Cleveland is stuck between two impossible choices. On one hand, they can continue to hold Shedeur back, trying to protect their veterans, their coaches, and their fragile sense of control. But every week they wait, the noise outside grows louder. The chants in the stadium, the endless talk shows dissecting Stefanski's words, the avalanche of social media clips, all of it piles up into a pressure cooker that's ready to blow. On the other hand, if they finally unleash Sanders, they risk everything. They risk exposing their own mishandling of his development. They risk proving the critics right that he should have been playing all along. And most of all, they risk losing the last shred of control over the narrative. Because once Shedeur steps on that field, the story no longer belongs to the front office or the coaching staff. It belongs to him, to the fans, and to the spectacle of the NFL. That's the dilemma, and that's why the clock is ticking so dangerously fast. Because this isn't just about football anymore. It's about culture. It's about business. It's about the rare convergence of sports and celebrity that turns a quarterback into something bigger than the game itself. And every moment the Browns delay, they're not just holding back a rookie, they're holding back a phenomenon. What makes this even riskier is that the NFL doesn't wait. Momentum shifts quickly. Players rise and fall in the blink of an eye. If Cleveland fumbles this opportunity, they may never get it back. The fans won't forgive them, the locker room won't forgive them. And history won't forgive them either. That's why the Sanders saga feels less like a slow build and more like a countdown. The signs are all there. The massive jersey sales, the frustrated fan base, the shaky performances from the veterans, and the thinly veiled tension in every press conference. You don't need a crystal ball to see what's coming, only a stopwatch. The Browns can keep stalling, they can keep dodging questions, they can even keep pretending that Sanders isn't the most electric rookie prospect in years. But the reality is, none of it matters anymore. Because the moment is coming whether they like it or not. And when that moment arrives, when Shedeur Sanders finally steps on the field, under the blinding lights and the deafening noise, the only question left will be, did the Browns waste too much time? The clock is ticking, and in Cleveland, it's about to hit 0. If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.